You know, the Olympic Mountains were the last place in the lower 48 to be explored. For that very reason, many think the Sasquatch or Bigfoot is hiding out in here somewhere between the lines. I'd love to believe that, I really would. But this place is not without real mysteries. One of those mysteries that caught my attention was the missing F-102 Delta Dagger and its pilot, Captain Lucas.
This thing, actually, for me, goes clear back to 1962. I mean, I grew up in Hood Canal. I grew up in Hoodsport. I was 9 years old. I remember when this plane disappeared. It was a big deal when it happened. And it was right after the Cuban Missile Crisis. You know, everybody's all uptight about that. And then this plane disappears, and there's all kinds of rumors floating around about what it might have been, but of course it wasn't. They're talking about it being a U-2 spy plane and all kinds of weird stuff. You know how those rumors get started. But even though the paper said it was an F-102. And the biggest memory I have of it is that it happened the opening day of elk season, of course, which accounted for all those elk hunters that heard the explosion. But the second day of elk season, there were so many Air Force people up west of Lake Cushman, the original search area, that it completely ruined the hunt. And there were so many hunters that were pissed off about that. My uncle and my dad being, two of them.
I've shared with you my love for wild places, places that I call in between the lines. Well, it was while I was researching one of these places that I came across the story of Captain Lucas and his lost aircraft. It wasn't long after that I was around a campfire and I relayed the story to my friend Tomek. Well, that was it. By the end of the night, we had launched My Olympics in our search for Captain Lucas. Very early in our research, we came across an aviation archaeologist named Cy. Cy had had some past experience and involvement in the finding of a P-38 Lightning missing during World War II coming back from the Battle of the Aleutians. He had been searching for Captain Lucas for at least 10 years at this point.
6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, well, 10 years. This is the 10th summer I've been looking for this. So, and I've been all over the freaking peninsula looking for this thing.
We contacted Cy and we set up a meeting in his Olympic Peninsula home. Cy was very friendly and welcomed our help. He shared with us everything he had. Redacted government documents, accident reports, interviews, maps. From there, we started putting together the story. In the 1950s, the Cold War was in full effect. At the time, Russia did not have ballistic missile technology that could reach the United States with a nuclear payload. Instead, the Russians relied upon long-range, huge bomber aircraft like the Bison. In response to this, the United States developed the F-102 Delta Dagger, the first supersonic interceptor. This plane's job was to race away from the U.S. and shoot down the Russian bombers before they could ever reach U.S. soil. In 1960, the 64th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, based at Payne Field in Everett, Washington, were tasked with this responsibility. 1962 was going to be a tough year for the 64th. In April of 1962, the 64th took part of the opening ceremonies of the Seattle World's Fair. During the demonstration, an F-102 malfunctioned over Lake Washington. A quick-thinking pilot aimed the plane at the lake and punched out using one of the earliest versions of an ejection seat. Unfortunately, the plane didn't go into the lake. It pitched back up and kept flying. It crashed into a North Seattle neighborhood, killing a couple in their home. October 1962 brought the Cuban Missile Crisis to the 64th. This is what they trained for. This was the real deal. They were considered the front lines of this new modern warfare. Originally from North Carolina, Captain Robert Lucas was a seasoned pilot with the 64th. November 10th, 1962, Captain Lucas, along with Major William Turner and Major Gene Shaw, took off on an intercept and qualifying training mission. From our collective research and interviews, this is what we believe happened that day. November 10th was a typical gray northwest winter day. 9:32 a.m., Major Turner takes off from Payne Field in Everett, Washington, heading west towards Port Angeles. Shortly after, Captain Lucas takes off in his F-102. While approaching Vancouver Island, Major Turner reported that his data link was inoperable. Captain Lucas reported that his data link was operable. Both aircraft turned south toward the Olympic National Park. This is the last contact of any kind from Captain Lucas. As the two interceptors approached Mount Olympus, the SAGE operator merged the two signals to one. This was common practice with the early radar systems. At this point, the two airplanes were designated as one on the scope display. Meanwhile, a third F-102, piloted by Major Gene Shaw, had taken off late due to technical difficulties. He caught up with Major Turner near the intercept target. Major Shaw, while approaching, noticed that Captain Lucas was nowhere to be seen on his radar screen. It is important to note that November 10th was also the opening day of hunting season. The now primitive radio/distress beacon that Captain Lucas would have utilized at this time was also widely available on the civilian market and often used by hunters. We believe that the aircraft had a catastrophic failure, which gave Captain Lucas no time to make a distress call. Our theory is that the faint radio beacon signal picked up the day of the crash was possibly that of a hunter. This led the original search to be wrongly executed miles away from the original flight path. Using Google Earth, along with our consolidated research and radar data, we plotted the three Delta Daggers' flight patterns and timeline. This left us a huge area of National Park and Forest Service land to search. We had to narrow it down. We first could eliminate any area that had been logged or hunted in the past 50 years. We believe it would have turned up if it was in those areas. Taking into account Captain Lucas's last radio transmission and his subsequent radar signal merger with Major Turner, along with Major Shaw's rendezvous with Major Turner at the target site, we were able to narrow down the search area to a mere 45,000 acres of hardcore mountainous terrain. No sweat. It wasn't long before Tomas found something odd deep in the Olympic National Park, near the peak of Mount Lawson. A graphic artist by trade, Tomas then made a scale model of the Delta Dagger and was able to match it to the artifact found near Mount Lawson. Excited, we showed our new information to Cy, our aviation archaeologist.
And even after you told me where that thing was, on Mount Lawson, I had to look a long time before I found it. Once I spotted it, and I said, geez, what the hell could that thing be? I mean, it could be a weird rock formation, but at this point, I don't know. It's just, you're right, it's just got too damn many similarities to that airplane, so it could be it.
A mild winter allowed our team to start the mission early in the season. On the evening of July 2nd, we got a jump on the trail that night for about 3 miles. Tomas and I brought with us two of my closest friends. My buddies Sean and Michael grew up near Mount Rainier. They are both avid hikers, mountain bikers, and outdoorsmen. They have been on many of adventures with me. To complete the team, our aviation archaeologist Cy, his son John, and his granddaughter Elia all joined us.
My oldest son John volunteered right off the bat to do this, and then he said that my granddaughter, his daughter Elia, would like to come too, and I don't know, a little hesitant about that, but although she's pretty sports active and is a real active girl and does lots of stuff, and she has just impressed the hell out of me on this trip. I can't believe, she's done better than I have. So, of course, she's 15 and I'm 60, so I guess that stands to reason.
Day 2, we rose early to pack up and hit the trail for 9 more miles of beautiful Quinault rainforest. At mile 12, we started looking for a safe place to forge the North Fork of the Quinault River. It was not long before we found a wide, shallow area to make our crossing. This began our first bushwhack into the Gooey Duck drainage area.
I love the mountains anyway, and it's just like, what a good excuse to be up here. I used to hunt. I got to the point I just don't like killing stuff anymore, So I needed another reason. So I chase airplane wrecks.
After burning a full half day bushwhacking along Geoduck Creek, we finally came across our first and only good spot to station our base camp. Racing the sunset, we set up base camp Geoduck. The rest of the evening was spent around the campfire, eating dinner, trading stories, and discussing our hopes and theories for finding Captain Lucas. I've lost a lot of sleep over this project from the beginning, thinking about Captain Lucas. This night would be no different. Day 3, we departed Camp Geoduck with light day packs and water. Geoduck Creek was raging. It was clear the creek was the gatekeeper to our Mount Lawson ascent, and she was going to collect her toll straight away. Just like a military mission, our ascent of Mount Lawson was subject to the law of snafu. Situation normal. You can do all your planning and research when you're in the rear, but until you're on station with boots on the ground, you really don't know what you're up against. Bushwhacking takes patience and focus. Add in the fact that there's no trails, and you also increase your chance of getting lost. Steep inclines, thick bush, narrow log crossings, fallen old growth, cliffs, dead ends, and constantly changing weather are the order of the day. A several-mile bushwhack raising almost 4,500 feet in elevation. No trail means slow, hard travel. When I say slow travel, it is hard to conceive moving at a quarter of a mile an hour pace, and at times even slower. The chance for mechanical injury is great, as you try to stay focused on moving through such dense and dangerous terrain. I had an extra hard day, as I was fighting off some sort of crud. The pain of the climb was making it hard to stay positive about our objective. It is so damn thick, the airplane could be 50 feet to either side of you, and you wouldn't know it. At this point, it would usually be a pretty big boost to my morale to be so close to the end. But me, with years of backcountry and off-trail experience, got schooled all day by a 15-year-old girl in tennis shoes. Crushing my ego into tiny little bits, I am the last one to reach the top. A long, steep snowfield separated us from the final target search area. After a very long day of whacking up this hill from Geoduck Creek, we are finally in the ravine that is our target location. Had kind of a rough day, dragging a little ass, but starting to get another wind here. So we're gonna get to the top of this ravine and see what we see. No airplane jumping out at us, but if it was jumping out at us, it would probably already have been found. Just let me tell you folks, this isn't easy. This and views like that, it's worth the trip up here. The area had opened up to some beautiful views and meadows of snow-capped peaks. This is the spot, we're positive. GPS confirms it right after the map and compass does. So, I was hoping to be talking to you from the top of an F-102 crash site of Captain Lucas. Well, we found the exact spot that we were coming to look for, but we didn't find the aircraft. We're thinking it might have been a couple trees that had been grouped together back up here, and I don't know, Google Earth did something to it to made it look like an airplane. Not even an object that resembled what we were seeing on the satellite images. No one was more disappointed than our archaeologist, Cy.
Well, I'm disappointed that we didn't find our plane. It's kind of disappointing we couldn't even figure out what the object really was. It had been some sort of a lens distortion or something. But we had to do it. We had to know for sure one way or the other, and unfortunately it just didn't work out. So we'll just continue on. Maybe hopefully this is going to draw some more attention to this case. Maybe the military will come back and take another look at it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this much more. Damn it.
Doubt and disappointment are hard to swallow, especially after you put in so much hard work. And we still only are halfway. We still gotta make it out of here safe before the sun goes down. Oh, well, yeah. Wah, 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 wah. No airplane. We had a great time, but, you know, boy, not even to identify the actual big object that we saw on Google Earth and to actually be in we know it was the exact spot. It's, you know, it's heartbreaking, but heading down the mountain is easier, but it is also more dangerous. Add rainstorms and extreme fatigue, and you have a recipe for disaster. The last obstacle of the day was the hardest, the reforging of Gooey Duck Creek. Search day 4. I woke up with the failure and the disappointment of the prior day weighing on me like a cheap whiskey hangover. Regardless, we all knew we had a really tough day ahead of us, and the weather was definitely turning for the worst. We crossed Gooey Duck Creek and then executed a team effort to cross the North Fork of the Quinault. This ended up being one of my favorite parts of the mission. I love when people come together and work to get a project done. Once on the trail again, it was a 12-mile rainy grind out. Every hill was met with disgust and disbelief. Never leave a man behind. We've all heard this in the movies and the media. It's a belief that helps the soldier face the fear of combat, to face the fear of never coming home to his loved ones again, to face the fear that the fallen will be subjected to the enemy's desecration. To fight effectively, soldiers, sailors, and airmen must believe that they will not be left behind. Unfortunately, we are still missing soldiers from almost every conflict we've ever been engaged. It is my opinion that Captain Lucas has fallen through the cracks. A frontline soldier of the Cold War, missing in his own country, missing in my backyard, missing in the Olympic Mountains. As an ex-Army Pathfinder, no man left behind burns inside me. I knew when I accepted this search that it would be extremely difficult, almost impossible. But I will continue to search in between the lines of the Olympic wilderness for Captain Lucas. There are technologies out there that could help us. Most of them are too costly unless we can pick up a major sponsor to join our effort. For right now, we're looking for people that were out on that day, November 10th, 1962. Noises, explosions, rumors, anything that could help us put together a new lead. If you have anything to share from that stormy November day, or if you have talents, muscle, or ideas that you would like to lend to this project, please contact us at My Olympics. Thank you.